So, thank you so much for coming and doing this, Mr. Martin. Nguyen, champ.
Oh, you sound starstruck.
I am actually.
Don't be.
Oh, now I'm a bit nervous now. Yeah, I'd just love to get to know your story, like, where you came from, what's your background.
Sure. I'm a mixed martial artist competing out of Western Sydney.
Yeah.
I represent Australia and Vietnam on the world stage.
That's interesting. Sorry, I just want to stop you there. Where did you get that to have two?
For two, so initially it was just Australia because obviously I was born here and that's where I was brought up to be. But being in Asia, it's more to inspire the country as well, also represent them as well.
Wow.
To give them just the Vietnamese people in general, someone to look up to. So if I put Vietnam there, I am Vietnamese. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of where I come from and my parents come from as well. So for people who search me up and want to find a Vietnamese hero, I'll be happy to step up and be that icon for them. It's always an honor to inspire the younger generation and coming from like a third world country like Vietnam.
Do they have a representative at the moment for 1FC?
Look, it's the sport itself. From what I'm aware, it's still illegal there.
Right.
But I mean, there's a lot of aspiring martial artists in Vietnam at the moment that are trying to break the scene.
Yeah.
But it's just not having that platform.
Yeah.
Being the government, like it's being illegal still, so it's in the works.
No worries. So you were born here. What was your childhood like?
Childhood growing up, look, how I put it is I was just a typical Australian kid. I grew up. I loved playing football. I played footy my whole life. My parents, mum and dad worked tirelessly to put food on the table.
Yeah.
No, we weren't very poor and we weren't very rich. We were at the stage where my parents were comfortable, and we could have better. I mean, everyone could have better, but I guess it's all about happiness, and I'm pretty sure they were happy where we were and how we grew up and how everything played out. So.
Yeah. So you grew up in Western Sydney, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which part of Western Sydney?
Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Yeah. We skip out Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're still in that area?
Parents, mum's still in that area with brother and sister, and I moved out to Camden with my family.
Yeah. And so what I understand is you were a mechanic?
Yeah. So at 6, after high school, straight after high school, I mean, every Asian parent's expectations is their kid to go to university and, be a doctor or aspiring accountant or, lawyer. But for me, I think my parents understood the fact that I love sports and just the books weren't my thing. So as soon as I finished high school, my dad flew us to Vietnam just to just get back into our roots, learn more about the family. So we stayed in Vietnam for about it was about 3 months. And I came back. As soon as I came back, I started working as an apprentice light vehicle mechanic. And just stuck it out until just this year, actually.
and how is it for you? Because you're born here and growing up and having a Vietnamese heritage. Mm-hmm. How was that for you experience-wise?
Experience-wise, I think the way my parents brought us, all us kids up, is basically the Australian way, where it's growing up in Australia, just how lucky we are to have it. I mean, it could have been as strict as other countries or as poor as other countries, but they just brought us up the way they were, learning Australia themselves, coming from a different country and, having that freedom of speech here in Australia and just that kickback life. Growing up, I think that's what as my parents were learning the Australian way, that's how we grew up at the same way, like through school as well. So
was the school diverse where you're from?
No, it was actually it was. Yeah, so it was a lot of different multicultural backgrounds back at Saturday Public School. So majority was Australian, and you know what? It was beautiful, man. Honestly, growing up, I wasn't like racially. Nothing was racist or anything. I was just another Australian kid that loved to play footy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So at what point did you get into MMA? Or
Okay,
how did you start that journey?
Okay, so playing rugby league since I was 8 years old, up until I was 18.
Yeah.
I started to get a few bit more injuries. I was more of a little athlete
Yeah.
on the field, and I started to get a lot of injuries. The main one that made me call it quits was dislocating my shoulder.
Right.
My right shoulder. It was up until the point where every week, or even when I'd sleep and I'd wake up and the shoulder would be popped out. It was pretty aggressive. And
How old were you then?
I was 18.
Right.
Yeah, so it was at that stage where I hung up the boots, I called it quits, and I got into rehab, self rehab. I apparently needed like shoulder reconstructions and everything like that. But I was at that young age, I was naive, and I thought I was invincible, so I thought I'll do everything myself. And with rehab and YouTube, really helped me out.
Thanks to YouTube.
Thanks YouTube. Oh yeah. And yeah, just self rehab for about a good 2.5 years. And at that stage, we had our firstborn, my wife and I. It was Kai.
Right.
We had him we found out when I was 19 and a half-ish, and we had him when I was 20.
Wow.
So
Young dad.
yeah, very young.
Huge responsibility.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? Speaking of that, and having my son at a very young age, it actually made me step up and become the man basically I am today.
Yeah.
Today it's just like being a father instead of a boy, being a role model. And from being a role model at 20 and wanting the best for my family, it
makes you
it's
hungry.
of course, yes. And it's progressed ever since. And 9 years on, I'm still on that same mission. So
Wow. With your did you ever thought of getting into a footy career?
That was the initial career. That was my initial career. I mean, I made representative football.
Oh wow.
I played Harold Matthews. I lived and breathed rugby league. I trained twice a day. I was the captain for the school squad, and weekend squad. I was the captain as well. So it was one of the sports where I felt the most comfortable.
Right.
And it will always be in my blood to play rugby league.
You could have been the first
Vietnamese Australian. Yeah. But you know what? I think injury beat me in this game. And repetitive injuries, and when you get so much pain, there's only so much pain my body could handle at that young age, and it got to a stage where enough was enough, and I had to hang it up.
So what's different between MMA?
So MMA,
and how did you start MMA?
Okay, yeah. So how I started MMA was, as I said, I was after the self rehab and after having my first newborn and getting married, I put on a bit of kilos. Actually, I was walking around after I got back from Vietnam at about 70 kilos or so. And as soon as we had our firstborn and got married, I was up at 86 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was a bit overweight. And at that time, it was funny. My neighbor, he was doing taekwondo at the start. He wanted to get into a different type of martial arts, which was Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And where I train at the moment, they just started training jiu-jitsu, and he wanted to try it out, but he was like that shy kid growing up. He needed someone to be there with him, and I was like, you know what?
I'll come along.
I'll come along. I'll try it along. UFC's booming. Mixed martial arts is like the fastest growing sport. So
at that time, you never thought you were gonna.
At that time, I was just watched it on TV, and I was like, this is interesting. This is pretty cool. And when we went and we tried it out, I was like into that weightlifting stage at the moment.
Yeah.
Just having that competitiveness in jiu-jitsu, it brought back the same feeling of rugby league, and that was my nature, and that's what made me fall in love.
And it's a beautiful art, isn't it?
It is. It's a gentle art, but for someone as little as myself or as my friend as well, to be able to make someone twice the size submit, it was extraordinary. I was like, did that just really happen? Did I just make this guy submit? No. But then, it was a way of losing weight first. Yeah. And in fact, it did work. But
just from BJJ?
Just from jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And then from jiu-jitsu, while training at KMA Top Team, where I train at the moment, I seen some of the pro fighters train at the back, and it was pretty intense.
Right.
And this is like the boom of mixed martial arts in Australia.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be like them. Their training sessions are pretty cool. Yeah, it's very competitive. I thought my one was competitive, but these guys are very competitive. And one step led to the next, and I started training kickboxing and then Muay Thai, and then at that stage it was like 1.5 to 2 years into my training, and I wanted to test myself in tournaments.
Right.
And the first tournament came up in jiu-jitsu, and I tried out for that, and
Was it in gi?
it was gi jiu-jitsu, and I came third.
Wow.
New South Wales Gracie jiu-jitsu comp.
Yeah.
I came third. I won 4 that day, and I lost that last one. It was my fault. I still remember it like it was yesterday. So after one of the matches, I was exhausted, and I told my wife I needed a drink. She got me a Powerade, and I sculled the whole bottle. And as soon as I finished that whole bottle, my name got called out.
Oh no.
And I was like, I'm so bloated. So I went into that match. I went for a takedown. The guy stuffed it, and he grabbed my collar and just nippily put it against my throat, and I threw up. I threw up in my mouth. I tapped out, and then I ran off the mats, and I just completely threw up in the bin. But yeah, that was that was embarrassing.
That was a lesson learned not to drink.
100%, yeah. And my wife and all my teammates were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I was thirsty, man. I was like exhausted." But yeah, that day, after that competitive day, the next tournament came up, and it was my first mixed martial arts amateur open mat tournament, and I came first in that tournament.
Oh wow.
Funny saying that though, my wife didn't want me to compete in mixed martial arts because how brutal it was.
Yeah.
And how brutal everyone was saying it was.
How did you convince her?
I didn't. I told her that I'm going to another jiu-jitsu comp. Wink, wink. And I came home with the trophy. I was saying I won, and she goes, "Oh, another jiu-jitsu comp." I was like, "No, this is mixed martial arts." And yeah, that day I fought 3 times, and I won all 3.
Oh wow.
And then the next tournament came up, and I'm like, "You should come and watch." And she was nervous at the start, and because I had already done it, she thought, "I'm gonna come support me." Yeah. So
what was the driving force for you to keep going?
It was, as I said, it was the competitiveness, and just it was the ultimate test of seeing how far I've come in such a little time, and just the 1.5 years of training. And to be able to compete against someone who's put in the same amount of time, it was him versus you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when it comes to competitive sports, that's the result. There always has to be a winner, and always has to be a loser.
Yeah.
And it's whether you learn from the experiences that you go through in the journey that you're on, and people that you meet. I mean, I met guys where I've never met him in my life, but I met him on the mat. He was about to punch my face in. And afterwards, we're like almost the best friends. Yeah. So it was it's the people you meet along the way, and you enjoy their journey, and as well as they enjoy yours.
Yeah. So on this platform, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the core philosophy of what we're talking about. And I love mixed martial art because of that, because it's mixed martial arts. There's so many aspects of different arts form that you got to combine and find the ultimate truth.
Of course, yes.
And so my appreciation for it is a higher philosophical level. From your perspective, how do you find like martial art applies to social? You know what I mean?
To life?
Yeah.
To life itself. Martial arts, the main thing that I see and what I got out of it was discipline.
Yeah. Rather than violence, because a lot of people see it from that perspective.
Of course, so when people see it, and how I saw it at the start as well, it was a lot of violence. It was pure violence, but what they don't see behind the violence is the hard work and discipline, and just all the sacrifices that you put into your sport to be able to make it somewhere. And that's my journey at the moment. So I put in a lot of hard work, sacrifices. I speak to a lot of mentors and inspiring people, and all these little bits and pieces here and there are like little gems that you put together, and you go in the cage for 15 minutes to put it all out. But the way people
they only see
it,
the 15 minutes.
They only see the 15 minutes, but the people that actually follow you and are interested in your career, they see all like the backstories behind that 15 minutes. They don't care about that 15 minutes. That 15 minutes is just that 15 minutes that you're doing the sport for, but the thing that catches their eye is all the sacrifices and everything that you miss out on outside.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's insane, man.
It is. It's pretty crazy. In talking about sacrifices, like I'll be the first to say it. my first two newborns, it was Kai and Tiana. I wasn't around as much.
Yeah.
I was constantly training, and it was all my wife that brought those two.
She's a hero behind the scenes.
She is. And you know what? Without her and her support, I wouldn't be here. To be honest, in this particular scene, in this particular sport, if it wasn't for her sacrifice for our family, then
And having two division.
of course, that two division, it was all hard work and dedication, man. It wasn't meant to happen, but by fate, it did.
I saw your emotion in that, man. That's unbelievable.
It is coming into these bouts, especially when you particularly know a person. There's a lot of emotions that go into mixed martial arts, whether it be sad emotions or mixed emotions or happy emotions. It's always going to be all over the place. And knowing that you just hurt someone that it's hard. It's hard to swallow. So at the end of the day, it's a mutual agreement, and you just help each other grow from there.
Yeah, because one of the things that I really admire about mixed martial artists, especially like yourself, the mental toughness that you need to be able to push through that boundary, and that can apply to a lot of things in life. And generally our audience are not necessarily mixed martial artists, but there's a lack of, I guess, a sort of a mental toughness approach. I can see that in what you guys do.
Definitely. How I overcome that is basically I think, why am I doing this? I mean, what am I getting out of it? How I see is why I'm doing it is I want to set a platform. I want to set a good example for my family. Family is number one for me. So every time I come into like a dark spot or things are going bad, I think back family wise, my parents. What they've gone through is nothing compared to what you're going through at the moment. They've had worse. So they went through war times, and moving from a different country into a complete new country, having to learn ABC from scratch. Whereas I just got bashed at training. I'm feeling sad. That's nothing compared to what they've gone through. So with the emotions and with all my the negative demons and everything that come through, you just think on the positive side that your parents have gone through worse. So what they've gone through, you can't complain about what you're going through at the moment. You just gotta push on and overcome adversity. So
that's amazing because you then drawn your inspiration from your family,
of course,
as part of that journey. Wow.
That's how I say it. So family, as I said, family is number one for me. And how I see it with my kids, I want them to see the hard work and sacrifices. I mean, I wasn't around as much for the first two. So that's all the sacrifices that I've.
That's all right. They won't remember it.
Exactly. Hopefully, don't watch back on the interviews. But so I wasn't around as much for the first two. So a lot of sacrifice. I wish I was there. I wish I can see my son's first step. I had to come home and see that, and then I wasn't actually there. So all those little bits and pieces. I mean, it doesn't mean much to anyone that doesn't have kids, but to a father, it means a lot. And as a family, it makes them bond even more. So all of that I missed out on, and I'm trying to make it back in a way where when it gets tough for them later on during life, they can see that all of your sacrifices that dad has made. You don't get to see all that tough side when you grow up. You just grow up like a normal everyday kid.
So true, especially when you have such a huge responsibility. It would have drive you even harder.
Of course, so there's always the motivation to always create that platform for them. To never to worry about a day in their life. I still remember like it was yesterday. Like we used to live week to week, counting the dollars, counting the senses, and seeing like I probably never seen it back when my parents were like that, but maybe my parents were like that as well. And going through that feeling, it's such an ugly feeling, and I never want to be there again. And I'm just lucky enough now to be where I am today, and where one championship has helped me be where I am today. And it's all motivation at the end of the day, and always striving to be better. So.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with what ONE FC is doing at the moment. Like the way that they look after the athletes, from a weight cut perspective as well. That's a big deal right now. What UFC is doing wrong. Definitely.
In terms of the weight cut, I mean, it used to be still is at the moment a traditional thing where an athlete will cut weight down to a particular weight just to compete at that weight, but also risk their life at the same time. So what ONE Championship has done is They make sure that you're competing at your walk around weight,
Right.
fully hydrated.
Wow.
So you're not depleted at
That's
all.
why everyone looks so good.
It is. Oh yeah. I don't look at shredded, but yeah, it's all good. Nah, in terms of fighting at my own weight, it's good going in, knowing that you're fighting against someone that is. It's basically it's a 50-50.
Yeah.
You're not going in where it's like this guy's
it's almost
huge.
cheating.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's what one championship has done. It's completely the way of the future.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you? So you say after 2 years of training, you went into your first competition. How long did it take you to get in, or to get to a point where you realize, or you think, I could do this as a full time?
Yeah. So it wasn't until I won my first Australian title, I was like, man, all this is actually working. I won an Australian title, and that night when I won the first Australian
That
title,
was Brace. Is it?
Brace. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that night when I won Brace, I was surprised with a one championship contract, and I was like,
Right on
wow,
the spot?
right on the spot, and I was like, wow, this is next level now. Like I can, knowing that I just won this title and knowing that I just got this contract, this can be the next thing in my life where it's international now. It's world stage, and I was scared. I was happy. I had so much emotions going on. I took about a good 2 weeks to sign that contract, and I went back. I sat down. I was thinking, what can I do with this? We had pep talks with me and my wife, and it was crazy. And it came to a decision.
It's a big decision. Yeah.
It was, yeah, because you're actually going against a complete stranger from the other side of the world you don't know nothing about, and that's what the scariest thing about my debut fight was. I was competing for the first time for one championship. I was fighting a guy who apparently was a pro boxer and also a undefeated mixed martial artist. No record of him, no videos, no nothing of him
So you can't study
on YouTube,
anything?
on nothing. So I just purely had to go the base of martial artists. What is a martial arts guy going to do against that particular martial arts?
Right.
And I played chess with myself, and going into that fight was the scariest fight of my life. Because you're going in against he could have been like, man, it could have been like a complete Conor McGregor or someone massive, but thankful enough, it all played out in our perspective. All the hard work and training at KMA all worked out, and
So it would have been
picked up from there.
I would imagine that always the first one's the most scariest, and then after that it gets easier and easier and easier.
Yeah,
from
so-
a mental perspective. Right?
Of course. So I get a lot of messages from just young starting fighters now, and what these guys usually ask for is just reassurance, like a bit of inspiration, things that I didn't have. So every time I get messages from these up and comers and these guys starting out in the sport, they ask me all the time, do you get nervous?
Yeah.
At the start, it's all you're gonna be nervous, and so you're gonna be nervous more about the fight than in the fight.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you just gotta go in there, do what you've been training, have fun, and you know what, win, lose or draw, it's always a learning curve.
Yeah. Well, that's what I find so impressive about you, about how you deal with your defeats.
It is. And you know what? Coming off a defeat just recently, it makes you realize what your body can go through and what it can't go through.
Because you went down a weight too, right?
I went down. Well, both of two of my recent losses have come from a weight division that's not mine. It's just I went down to that division to try and make history,
Right.
be the first fighter in the world to hold 3 titles consecutively.
Yeah.
And that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Thankful enough, I had that twice in a lifetime. Although it wasn't for me, and it's not my time to hold on to that title. It's a very good learning curve that I needed.
What's the difference from the feeling, of the different division?
You lose a lot of weight and a lot of muscle. And
What about speed and
definitely. So coming into that last fight, especially, well, the first fight against Bibiano Fernandez, I felt phenomenal. I had 3 months to get down to that weight. My body, I was walking around at 72 after my fight with Edward Folayang, and I had 3 months to lose 6 kilos, and I was like, man, this is easy. Like my body can adapt to every situation, and come near prep time, near comp time, the fight time itself, my body was already used to that weight, and that was my walk around weight for the last 3 months. So
Right.
I felt phenomenal. I felt my speed and power was there, and I said to myself, I got robbed that fight, and B, this is my new division. This is where I feel the most comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, guys that I'm bigger than, and I'm with the speed and everything, I'm the same. And after coming off that loss, I was naive. I was a bit hurt from the result. So I wanted to get back in there as soon as possible to prove myself, and I came back 4 weeks later and defended my featherweight title against an up and comer. And I said to myself, I need to get back down, and I need to win this title.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I want, and this is what I'm gonna work for. And having a 3-month prep in terms of a 7-week prep, I was and ahhing if I can make weight or not, because I usually walk around comfortable weight 71, 72 max.
Yeah.
And at the time I was 72 kilos.
Yeah.
I was about 71 and a half. And I messaged my nutritionist. I said, can I make this weight 65.8 or 66 kilos in 7 weeks? It's roughly about the 5.5 to 6 kilo mark I had to lose. She goes, yes, you can, but it'll be very aggressive.
Oh.
So in terms of very aggressive, there's pros and there's cons. And being naive and being me wanting that title, I said, let's make the weight. So I accepted the fight against Kevin Bellingon, which is the last one. Yeah. And for Kevin, naturally walking around at that weight, if anything, he'd probably have to put on weight, more muscle, more speed and everything. It was natural for him. For me, I had to cut 6.5 kilos. Yeah. Well, I did cut 6.5 kilos in 7 weeks. Wow. It was hard. It was aggressive. It was very, very stressful. But I made the weight. And that was a good learning curve for my body and knowing what it can go through. But I mean, come fight night, it just wasn't there. Yeah. And you know what? I'll be the first to say it. Like, the weight cut was a factor, but the true martial artist won on the day. So Kevin won fair and square. No other excuses. It is what it is, and it's time to move forward.
Yes, that's what I find super impressive about how you deal with all these scenarios. I mean, like, throughout life, a lot of people do get into this brick wall, right? Their faces, and how they deal with it, and your ability to overcome it, and even accepting it, and then your message on Facebook or Instagram.
Oh, my Instagram, yeah.
That had a whole team like, wow.
Yeah,
there's a champion right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I got positive vibes from that message itself, but it's just the truth spoken. I mean, as you said, a lot of people after a loss, they build a brick wall, and if you have that wall there, you can't move forward.
And that's the hardest. Like, you've seen it time and time again, especially in the most brutal art, right?
Of course.
Your business, it's punching somebody's head in.
It really is a cutthroat business. It's a very, very hurtful business, and it is called the hurt business for a reason. But it's all about overcoming adversity and, you know, being a true martial artist, not only for the sport itself, but to the people watching it. Yeah. You know, you're only as good as the person watching it as well. So you never think that you're better than anyone else, and you always try to inspire the person watching it who wants to become like you. Like, the people, I get people like, I idolize you, I want to be like you. But you know, it's hard, but it's a lot of hard work and dedication. But anyone can be. You can be just as good as me if you put the hard work and dedication in as well. So it's always like it's always inspiring, and B, you know, I'm always there to help no matter what. So,
well, I think that's the beauty of it. I can see that philosophy apply to any area. You know, you don't have to be a mixed martial artist.
Of course, yes.
You know, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business person, you might fail in the first business. It's how you get back up and doing it.
Of course.
You know, but seeing from, you know, the stake is so high with what you do in just 15 minutes. You know, it's like, that's it. And
exactly.
That's super impressive. So what's your future plan? Like, when did you have a idea that you were going with ONE FC, or were there other organizations that?
Look, to be honest, we do have other organizations chasing us, but in terms of the martial artist way, I mean, for me, loyalty is number one as well. So ONE Championship has been looking after me and my family very well. I wouldn't say to the point where we're so comfortable, but they've looked after us emotionally, obviously with the pay packet as well that we're on, everything, just the staff, the leader of the organization. We talk on a brother to brother basis.
Yeah.
It's all about loyalty. So if something's going so well and so good, why change it?
Yeah.
You know, if I go to another organization, I have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And you know, starting from scratch, it's hard work.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I don't want to go back. I mean, how I see myself is I'm not going to be in this sport forever. So while I'm in this sport, I try and make my mark, try build my legacy. And you know what, moving forward after the sport, you know, people are going to be talking about my name for years to come. That's what I want. That's what I want people to think of me, like all about the legacy. This guy's a first world champion, Vietnamese Australian, and then he became a champ, and then he defended his titles.
That's why, like, I'm like,
On and on
you're
and on.
such a great role model for our society, you know, especially in the region where I think MMA is still quite fresh, quite
It is.
new in Australia. I mean, we've got Robert Whittaker in the UFC as a champ. What's the major difference between ONE FC? Because they're specifically focused in Southeast Asia, right?
Mm-hmm.
From your experience, from a diverse perspective, like, what can you tell us about that experience? You know what I mean?
Well, fighting for one championship, they how can I say, they basically, they don't promote anything other than being a complete martial artist. So when it comes to humility, adversity, discipline, everything like that, they want to hear your story. They want you to be the best you, so you can inspire your fellow countrymen or your fellow peer. They don't want the trash talk. They don't want anything disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's the martial arts way, where we have martial arts where it came from Asia and it belongs in Asia, and that's what we're gonna idolize. You know?
Right.
So in terms of fighting for one championship, I haven't fought for the UFC or any other organization, but fighting for one championship, it's all about respect and honor.
Oh, we're right now getting a lot of Australian in the international scene.
We are.
Yeah, you know, we've got 2 UFC fighters right now, right? Robert Whittaker and what's
There's
the other guy?
There's Alex Volkanovski, Tai
Yeah,
Tuivasa.
yeah.
There's a lot of Australians breaking through the scene, and I'm so happy for him.
Yeah.
We're finally getting noticed, and like, you know, we're getting, you know, top 10. There's people from New Zealand and the Anzacs, you know, it's called the Anzac Takeover, and I'm following it. And you know what, it's a good thing that they're getting out there, and they're providing for the community and providing for their family. It's not all about fighting. You see them on the side doing community work and everything like that. So everything that they do, I mean, they're humble guys, man.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize how much you influence, especially when you're in the gym, you're training. I saw your, you know, training videos with other people. I was like, man, he's constantly going out there and making a difference for other people.
It's all about evolving when it comes to training. So you're not always doing the same thing. You're gonna get over it if you're doing the same thing over time. So it's all about expanding your training, and getting out there and meeting new people. Like, I mean, someone new that you meet, they can change your whole world completely, you know. Or, you know, anyone that becomes part of your journey and part of your training regime, it's like you're a part of theirs as well. So you're inspiring them just as much as they're inspiring you.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it anyway. So that when I go out and I start training with other people, I think, where did these guys start from, and where we're going to be in 10 years once we start training together, you know. So
I almost feel like every kid needs to get into martial arts.
It's
just to build them into toughness.
not only martial arts, but you can get into any sport.
Yeah.
And it's what you learn from your coaches and your mentors is what you preach, basically. And if they teach you the right things, and you know what's right from wrong, it's whether you take advantage of it or you don't, you know. And thankfully for me, my coach, he's been in the industry for over 35 years, and he's taught for a long time, so he's seen the good and he's seen the bad. He obviously wants the best for me and my family. So anything that comes to mind, he speaks his mind, and it's up to me to take it or not. And we start to go from there. So we agree to disagree. It's a coach and student life, but at the end of the day, it's all about good positive vibes anyway.
Yeah, see, I think that's one reason why I love One Championship, because they've got a whole different take on humility, and I almost feel like every fighters are, good friends at the end of it.
It really is. Like, as I said to you earlier, when I had my first bout, I was like, I never knew this guy at all, and to become best friends, and now we're still talking on Facebook. I mean, it's a very weird feeling at the start, but it's very positive.
But did you expect that though?
No, like I thought, like, after I beat this guy, he's gonna hate me for life. Like, he wants to get me back and ask for rematches until he gets back.
Maybe that's the American narrative that they're doing, right?
Of course. That's how it is. In the UFC, where it's just all negativity and all disrespect just to get the fight. And I understand you gotta talk to sell the fights, and the fans get you the money.
Well, it's a very different model, isn't it? Like, see, ONE FC is all free. You can watch everything, and then the UFC is
all pay-per-view.
Yeah, so they need to drum up that drama.
Of course, to get paid. But where One Championship excel is they don't promote that. They don't care if people watch or not. They want you, obviously, to a certain extent, they care if people watch or not, but they want people to watch for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So,
I think Robin Black actually mentioned that, and then that's why he loves ONE FC.
Of course, yeah. So the way Chatri has set it up, he's a great leader, and the way it's going at the moment, it's going to be overtaking the UFC soon.
So when did you stop your day job?
Yeah, so I was working in 10-hour days, 6 days a week.
How the hell do you even manage?
I was doing that for since we had our firstborn. Thankfully enough for me, at the time, my bosses were very supportive.
Yeah.
So every time I needed to leave, they were there to support me. It just came to a point where I won the first 2 titles, and I was speaking to Chatri, and I was like, oh yeah, just if you need me to do any media or anything, you just gotta give me a couple of weeks notice so I can let work know. And he was like to me, what, you still work? And I was like, yeah, I got a family to support. And at that stage, that's where he took it up another notch, and he started taking care of my salary that way. And
awesome.
it was, look, it's the same amount as what I was working for, but it's just made it more comfortable where I'm actually allowed
to focus.
I'm actually comfortable enough now to just have that extra bit of sleep, to kick back with the family and watch my little one grow. Like, we've had our third born, Tiana. Madison.
Yeah.
So that was, hopefully she doesn't watch. So we had our third born, Madison, and having Madison made me realize how much I wasn't around. So every single little bit of moment that happens, I want to be around, and thankfully enough, Chatri has set that up for me.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So what's your regular day to day now like?
From day to day. Okay, so I wake up.
Have a coffee.
Coffee's number one. I have a coffee with my wife, so we sit down, we kick back, we organize what we're gonna do basically for the week. Just have our little prep talk. She takes them to school, or I take them to school, and I go to my first training session, which is roughly around the 9 a.m. to 9:30 mark. I come back and we do our day-to-day things. If we have renovations or anything to do, that all gets done. And come school pickup time, I get to go pick up the kids. I hang out with them for about half an hour to an hour, and
in that respect, you actually have more time with your family now.
Of course, yeah. So any little bit of moment, I never used to be that father where after picking up the kids, well, I didn't even get to pick up the kids. Like, picking up the kids and go, "How was your day?" or "What did you learn today?" Like, what my parents had asked me. So now I actually I get to question them, what do you do? How much homework you got? Like, I'm being like the annoying father, which is pretty cool, because the way they answer back and the comebacks that they have, you're like, holy crap, like, these guys are old now, man. Like, oh no, they're growing up so fast.
Do they know that dad is a 2-division champion?
My son,
you was like, see the belt?
Exactly. Like, they see the belts, but I just try not to let it get to him. I think it comes to a point where my son's he's like my number one supporter. He knows. He always asks me who you fighting next, or if I tell him who it is, he's always the first person on YouTube and Google to Google search him and then tell.
He's your new coach.
Yeah. So he's like he's the guy that like he knows the ins and outs. But I don't let them get to the point where they think that we are better than anyone else. Yeah, I'm a two-time world champion, but what was I before the two-time world champion? I was the same guy, so I don't let anyone change the way we think about each other or if we're better than anyone else. But my son, he's always that like young and naive. He goes, "Oh, you're on YouTube, so you're famous." So whoever's on YouTube, they're famous for him.
He will just send your clip to all
the
his
link,
friends.
all his friends. He goes, "Hey, watch my dad on YouTube."
Here's the highlights.
Exactly, yeah.
They're lovely over.
Yeah, so that's how it's been, man. My daughter, look, the highlight for my career was being able to fly him out to one of the events. When we first at the start of the year, actually, when I fought Bibiano, and I wanted to have both kids because they're my number one priority and inspiration. So I wanted both of them to walk out. So my son got to walk out with us, but my daughter didn't. As loud as it was in the stadium, she still ended up falling asleep somehow. And then after we walked out, she woke up and she got pretty upset that she didn't get to walk out. But I promised her next time, but we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. So the other thing I want to tap into is the growth mindset as a martial artist. Like, what do you do? Is there a mental exercise, or are you constantly seeking for new things? You know what I mean?
For me, it's always learning. If you come to a point where you think you know it all, then you're not gonna grow.
Yeah,
you're gonna be at that spot forever. But if you're constantly learning, even if it comes to the point where you're learning about somebody else, like, and the way they move and the way they fight, or from my perspective, you look up to other people in other organizations. You watch the way they fight. You study the way they fight against another guy, but then he fights a different way against another guy. It's always putting the puzzle together to always better yourself, and then you start doing that in training, and then you feel that that's not working, so then you just tweak it a bit, and it works for you. All of a sudden you're knocking people out. For me,
I don't know if this is a compliment or not, but when I see you, it reminds me of Dominic Cruz.
I love Dominic Cruz. I'll take that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, he moved like an Asian version of Dominic Cruz.
For me, it's look, as much as this as much as the sport has become, I mean, you're gonna get hurt no matter what. You're in there to punch somebody, and someone's in there to punch you. So regardless, it's for my particular fighting style, it's to give the most damage as well as absorb the least damage. So I try to be the most elusive, and the most untouched fighter that can be in the roster. And you know what, in the last 3 matches, I don't know why, but I got to change my style now, but in the last 3 matches that I've had more time in that cage than my whole career. So it's time to learn again. And
well, it's very similar to, like, from a business perspective or individual level, like, we got to constantly change and innovate, right?
Of course.
And then how do you find the ways? Because it's hard, because especially when you grow up, your parents say specific things, or your peers or your school, you have a fixed style.
Of course, yes.
Like, how do you break away from that?
In a way of breaking away, you just have to travel. How I say is, you just gotta travel the road alone and try new things, and people's reaction will tell you if it's wrong or right. And you're always the parents' way is always the right way, but in a way it can still be the right way if you go to your path alone, but the right way in your sense. As your person, as yourself growing up, and experiencing the journey for yourself. It's how I say it is, like, as a parent myself, and it's just recently happened now, I've learned to break away to the point where my son and my daughter are allowed to ride on the bike and scooter away like I did. Like, I obviously know where they are, and with the amount of, like, the negativity, abductions and all that are going around, I think parents just need to step back, know where their kids are going.
I think it's also media. You know?
It is. Media's always gonna blow it up. Like, you can't like let your child walk out of the house without you not like knowing that he's just right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's like how I see is, for me, I learned of breaking away. My parents, I'd jump on my bike and I'd ride 10 kilometers away just to explore the area, and I know that I have to be home by this time, so I'm always back. And if I'm not home by that time, then my parents are actually going.
So you
out.
know what the boundary is,
Boundaries.
and you
There's
always
always
try to
boundaries.
go right.
Just to the edge. And goes, oh yeah, I'm here now. Okay, I'm coming back. But that's the only way you're gonna learn in life. You have to break away. You have to learn to let go.
Yeah.
And for my wife, she's like that type where she goes, don't. You gotta wear your helmet, or don't go outside without like your thongs. You can't ride your bikes without thongs. You put your shoes on. Like, she's always that safety. She always wants the best for the child.
Yeah.
But for me, how I see is how I grew up. I had to break away and I had to ride. Like, obviously, you go in groups like friends and all that. So we used to all jump on a bike and we used to ride like from Liverpool to Bonnyrigg, and then we'd come back and we're like,
Wow.
yeah. So it was like kids exploring, and that was probably the furthest I ever rode.
That doesn't happen these days.
It doesn't happen these days.
There's the computers.
Of course, yeah. So that's why I don't want my kids to be like stuck into computers and negativity. There's always with myself in general. I can't really impress everyone, and I can't like make everyone like me.
Yeah.
All I can do is just be the person I am, and whether they like me or not, it's up to them. Whether they find me an inspiration or not, it's up to them. So you just do your own thing, be a role model, be kind to everyone, and the rest will follow. But in terms of my kids going out, I mean, you have to break away.
Yeah.
And it goes from there.
That's absolutely from your own experience too. You
Of
know,
course.
like I can see like people get comfortable, right? Once you get comfortable, you don't grow. You know?
100%.
And then I can see like, especially with mixed martial, I can see like they're always seeking for that uncomfortable, the one that actually does well. You know?
Yeah. Those uncomfortable feelings, man, I don't like them. But
That's
you
the
have
scariest
to,
emotion, right?
It is very, very scary. It's like, it's how I see it is when you just look back at our parents, is that uncomfortable feeling, you know, moving from a country to a completely different country and starting your life again.
See, that's the thing. In some instances, that wasn't a choice.
That wasn't our choice.
You
no.
have a choice,
Of course.
to be comfortable.
Of course,
But
yes.
you took the uncomfortable step, and then to get to where you are.
Exactly.
You know, that's a really quite inspirational path. You know, and I don't know how I want to encourage the younger generations to find that mindset. You know, especially we're in an entitled, you know, generation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's look, as uncomfortable as it seems and as it feels, as soon as you get used to it, it feels too comfortable, almost too comfortable if you get way too used to it. So if you're always seeking the uncomfortable, then you always know that you're always learning and always growing. So yeah,
that's really
how I
awesome.
say it. That's how I say it anyway.
So from the journey now, especially I want to go back to this topic because this is quite interesting, which is your wife supporting you all the way through the journey. How have your family been perceived in Asia, especially coming from an interracial family?
I don't know how to answer this question, to be honest. It's growing up in Australia. I mean, they think. I mean, there's a lot of people that think Asians must be with Asians, or you know, white people must be white people. But I think
Especially rare for Asian men.
Asian men to be with a white Caucasian lady. So I don't know. I don't really read into the comments that much, but in saying that, she is the most Google search person.
More than you?
More than me, she is, to be honest. But yeah, it is weird. Weird to think that people actually still think that that's not right.
But did you ever experience that yourself, living in Liverpool, living in Australia?
No,
like,
was
there any weird glance at you? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I don't really. I mean, my parents was the main thing. They accepted it. So what anyone else thought,
You didn't
I
give a
didn't really care.
Yeah, that's
to be
awesome.
honest. And I didn't really think it really mattered anyway. I was brought up the Australian way, and you know, true love finds true love.
Yeah.
So my wife and I found each other, and you know what? For her to become more searched on Google than me, that's so weird. But yeah, if you write in Martin Nguyen, it comes up Martin Nguyen's wife, and then it has all my stuff underneath. I was like, what? Yeah, it's still allowed.
She's a celebrity now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just lost the train of thoughts. Think about googling your wife.
Yeah, don't do it. You'll give her more searches than myself.
So is she like? I assume she's sort of looking after your business affair as well, like from an admin's a social media aspect as well.
I told her not to get too much into it to the point where like reading comments and all that. Because as I said, there's always, no matter what, there's always going to be negative comments.
That's just internet for you, man.
That's just internet, yes. So I don't read any comments at all. If I do read them, if I think it's nice, then I'll like it. If not, then I'll just delete it or I'll ignore it. But no matter what, you can't impress or inspire everyone. So I told her not to get too like caught up in that moment, because she's very emotional and she always wants the best for me.
Fair
and always wants the best for our family as well. So I told her not to get too caught up in it and just focus on how we can be better.
Okay, so moving forward,
Yep.
what's your next big challenge?
My next big challenge, as in my bout or
Everything.
bout?
Do you have a long-term goal, obviously?
To be honest, I haven't thought that far ahead. I always thought, what's my next challenge ahead of my next bout? But my next challenge at the moment, right at this stage, is how I can better myself and my body. How I can bring it back to how it was before dropping down to bantamweight, and how I can improve from my last few battles. So that's my battle at the moment. Is improving to the next stage. But in terms of longevity and the future, I haven't thought that far ahead. I just think from week to week, to day to day.
How often do you fight in a year?
So I am the most active world champion on the roster at the moment. I've had 3 bouts, 3 world championship bouts this year. Naturally, for a world champion, it's 1 to 2 max. I've had 3 and I'm going on to 4. I really want 5 is what my goal was this year, but because time's running out, we'll see what happens in the injury and everything.
So obviously you got to look after your tools.
Of course,
your body is your tool. You got to make sure it's perfectly polished before you can
100%.
download the software.
Exactly. No,
And then you're upgrading the software.
I'm always upgrading no matter what.
Like, what about inspiration and role models? I'm sure there must be someone out there that you look up to.
Look, a role model type of view, I look up to. Look, it's spending every day with her. She's just a normal role model. It's my wife. I mean, she's honestly, she's always switched on as well. And everything she says and comes out of her mouth, it's actually like inspiring and always true. And what she wants done and everything, like even if it's stuff around the house, I go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Like that, she's always thinking like different levels. And even when it comes to my martial arts career, and my nutrition and everything like that, she's always wanting the best. So we're always growing that way. And inspiration, I'd say, would be the one championship leader at the moment, and his name is Situ-Asian, where he came from, and what he's built and the company he's built today. It's
that's pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
And he's quick rise too.
Man, he's massive, man. I've never heard of him until I actually started fighting for the company, and I didn't even think that he owned the company. I thought that he was just the owner of a gym in Singapore. When I first saw, I thought someone else owned it, and reading the backstories and then reading the stories to where it came from, and his name just repetitively gets getting mentioned. I'm like, hold on a minute. Put 1 and 2 together, and then I read his backstory of where he came from and how he got one championship started. I was like, wow, I'm so happy to be part of this journey with them.
I would assume once you hand over your towel, right? Like once you finish, you will continue the martial art part.
I would like to, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't like to plan ahead, because if you plan too far ahead, then and it doesn't work out for you, then where you gonna go?
Would you ever consider coaching?
I would. If everything plays out and my body feels right to go on to the next stage of coaching, because it is a hard thing to do, and a lot of sacrifices as well being a coach. So if my body feels right and mentally, if I'm still in that state of mixed martial arts, then I'll do it. But I'll always forever preach martial arts and the true meaning of martial arts, you know. So I don't know where the future holds for me. I still predict that I'll be in this sport for another 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
From a martial art perspective, do you look at other styles as well? Like, you know, what's your worldview when it comes to, you know, different type of...
Look at it. There's different types of styles. There's different. That's like how you think of it. Is like different types of weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can use this gun, or you can use this knife, or it can just be as deadly as each other. This is the part of learning and growing and adapting.
Yeah.
As martial artists, and for me, I like to learn a bit of everything. Worst case, if anything does happen, then I know basics of how to protect myself, which is the main thing, and my health.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want to be fighting like a kickboxer when I'm purely focusing on just boxing. Sorry, and I'm like, what if a kick comes up? Like, I need to know how to protect myself to the point where I don't get any damage. You know.
Yeah, because what I find interesting is, you know, martial art in itself can be a tribe as well, right? You can have a tribes of kung fu practitioners and
Of course.
taekwondo. I kind of see that in society, right? Let's look at it from a broader perspective, right? And why I love mixed martial arts is the ability where you can combine what works in the whole art form. We can talk about culturally as well, right? What can we bring from each diverse culture to help create a new sense of, you know,
A complete different warrior.
yeah.
Yeah. It's all about the basis at the start. So you learn every little bit of thing, and you're like.
Do you find the martial art community quite accepting? Like, let's say you want to walk into, I don't know, a kung fu school tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah. I how I see a martial artist is, it's all about respect.
Yeah.
You respect their journey, you respect the martial arts, and you're always welcome, no matter what. I can walk into a boxing gym, I can walk into another Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym, and everyone being a martial artist is always welcoming. Unless you're like a thug off the street and you want to do this because you want to knock someone out at the pub, then I think it's a different perspective where they would. It's a vibe that they get, and they'll know straight away.
Yeah.
But if you come across as respectful and humble, then you're always welcome.
Yeah. What I find another aspect of martial art fascinating is your ability to break things down super quickly. Like, people always think you would be mentally violent all the time.
Yeah, no.
but it's the opposite effect, right?
Of course. Yeah, I have. I'd like to leave my martial arts career out from my life with my family. So at home, I'm a family man. I'm everything about the family, and all about being a father of, like, renovating this, or servicing the cars, being like a father itself. You know. But when it comes to competing inside, then I switch off the father side and I go into competing side, thinking this guy's here to hurt me. What can I do to, I'm more strategic when it comes to battling, and I think deep into the way they move and the way they punch and everything, and how I can counter that. And when it comes into the martial arts side, it's what I've been doing for years. So this is where, it's like throwing a mechanic into a new workshop. He knows what he's doing, so you just gotta let him do what he does. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Cool. Well, thank you so much for this amazing conversation, man.
Thank you, man. It was good to break out.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So when do you get back into train? Like, what's your routine now?
Yeah, so my routine at the moment is to rebuild muscle, to rebuild my body, because when I dropped down to bantamweight, I lost a lot of kilos, I lost a lot of muscle and strength, and I think that played a huge factor in my last bout, and that was what really won the fight for him, if anything. So I'm back to rebuilding the body to how it was before I started dropping the bantamweight, and the mindset is still there. I'm still a world champion. I'm still going to be defending my world championship titles, and always inspiring. So now
just training,
training, and I'm looking at November turnaround.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
We'll be watching you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. So, guys, if you like and please subscribe and leave a comment for Martin. We'll see you next time.
Follow my journey.
Follow his journey. Follow his journey. Tell people how they can follow you.
Yeah, so on Facebook I have a fighters page. It's Martin the Situation Nguyen.
Oh, quick question. Situ. That's it. I want to find out what that
I knew
means.
you were gonna ask me that. Okay, so the situation, how I got that was when I started off at KMA, I was, as I said, 86 kilos. I was pretty chubby. I was pretty fat. And coming down for my first mixed martial arts bout, I got down to about 77, which I was still a bit chubby. But the next bout after that, I went down to 70 kilos. So it's losing seven kilos from 77. I started to get a bit ripped. And
That means six pack, right?
yeah, so I started seeing a bit of packs and, my body getting a bit ripped. And at that stage, Jersey Shore was out and there was a character, the Situation, and he was always obsessed about his abs. And I was like, man, this is the first time in years I've seen abs. So that's when people started calling me a Situation. I was like, man, don't call me a Situation. If you're gonna call me a Situation, call me the Situation.
The Situ-Asian.
And it was a gym joke. It was a gym joke. And then when it came to my first professional bout, because everyone was calling me a Situation, the promoter comes in and goes, "Oh, do you have a nickname or anything?" And I was like, "No, just Martin Nguyen," like that. And my coach comes up and goes, "No. Here's the Situation." And I was like, "No." He goes, no, not Situation. It's the Situ-Asian. And then the promoter, because he's so funny, Jimmy White, man, he's a clown. He goes, I'm gonna promote that. And then he started saying it, and it just caught along, and the tongue went forward.
Well, thank you, champ.
No worries.
Good luck on your next one, man.
Thank you.
See you guys. How was that?
Man. Beautiful. Thank you.